Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
For live.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off. Are you ready?
Let's go.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off.
Live talk. This live talk. Live talk. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. We're going all the way live with it. With live talk, increase your mentality, put away carnality and increase your spirituality. Let's
Are you
go.
ready?
Live talk.
Are you ready?
This live talk.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for live talk? Because it's about time to set it off. Greetings and welcome to Live Talk. I am your host, Arthur Jeremiah, alongside my co-host, the minister.
Welcome again.
So, minister, it's been a long week. I know it's been long for me.
Yes,
I mean,
is.
you know, I'm in the middle of tax season, you know, business returns coming up. A whole lot of stuff is going on. I know you're busy. I know a lot going on there. But yet, it's still, we're here today.
Gotta be here. Even though those 24 hours getting stretched, we still gotta be here and make it live.
Right. And I know our audience enjoy that. You know, we try to put so much into it, but we bring it for you guys, you know, and I know it's a lot that you know is going on in the world today, and we want to highlight individuals, even from our past and current as well. Last week we highlighted two individuals somewhat current. One passed away, but one of the sisters was still alive today, and we gave a lot of recognition to that sister. But today we have an unsung couple that we're going to highlight today, husband and wife. So I look forward to that. But before we get there, let us give you a rundown of the show today. First, we'll have the word of the day from the minister. Right after that, we'll go to a quick commercial break, and then we'll come back and get into the meat of the program, which we'll be talking about two unsung couples that did some great work in Black, when I say in American history, but you know, there are two Black couples that did some great, wonderful works, and you're gonna hear all about them. You're gonna hear about the things that they done. You'll hear about some of the accomplishments as well. And then right after that, we'll go to another commercial break, and then we'll come back with some breaking news. And then right after that, we'll go into the book reading, if we have a book reading for today, but we'll go into it at that particular time, and then we'll adjourn our program for the day. So with no further ado, Minister, what's the word of the day?
All right. Today, actually, we're going to do a couple of quotes for today.
Okay. All right.
With what's going on. And the first quote we're going to start with says that a democracy cannot thrive where power remains unchecked and justice is reserved for a select few. Ignoring these cries and failing to respond to this movement is simply not an option for peace, because it cannot exist where justice is not served. And that was from the late Congressman John Lewis, and he mentioned that specifically about the death of George Floyd and trying to get that Policing Act passed. And I bring it up because it's relevant to the couple that we're talking about today, because it shows that we're having these same struggles. And another quote, and this one is from Dr. King, and we've heard it say, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. But the other part of that he says we're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied into a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. So when you look at what's happening globally, you can see that the injustices that happened here, with the injustices that's going on around the world, it affects us all. What happened to George Floyd and what happened to who we're talking about today, Henry and Harriette Moore, it's all interconnected. You may think it's not connected, but it's connected and you can feel it.
You're right. Because even with, you talk about John Lewis, who passed away, about 2 years ago?
Yeah, wow, it's been I thought it was a year, just about a year ago.
And he was a civil rights leader around that time. He walked and marched, and there's a lot of things that I'm pretty sure he has seen up until the day of his passing. So and if he was still here, if you would have had a conversation with him, he would have told you, like, ain't too much have changed. No. Now, they didn't let us stick our toe in the door, but ain't too much really changed.
except time.
Right.
But the actors are still the same. They just dressing different.
There you go.
Back when they were marching, the Klan was wearing their white hooded robes. Now they done took their robes off and they put on suits. But they saying and doing the exact same thing.
Right.
Same thing.
Ain't that something? All right. So is that it for the word of the day?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for that word of the day. And we're going to go to a quick commercial break. But before we go there, I just want to let you all know we don't have our engineer for today. So, of course, we're going to have to take a lot of the work today. So bear with us, hang with us. There's just some of the things that you have to do when you commit yourself to doing certain things.
Back office work that you don't see, it's definitely going on.
I'm telling you. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, shalom and blessing, y'all. This is Author Jeremiah Israel coming to you live. Listen, I'm so excited because my ebook version of The Spiritual Significance of a Name is now available. You can go to my website today at www.jeremiahisrael.com. Now, this ebook is pretty much available anywhere and everywhere that ebook is sold. I'm so excited about that because, ebooks are sold internationally, but I would like for you to go to my website at www.jeremiahisrael.com, pick up your copy, or you can go ahead and download the ebook version of it. Whether you're on a plane, whether you're traveling, whatever you're doing, pick up this copy. It's only $4.99. It's not going to break your pockets and not going, break the bank. So go ahead and get the copy of this ebook now, today, $4.99. Go to jeremiahisrael.com and truly become blessed, because it will truly put you on a path to defining your true purpose. Until next time, peace and prosperity. All right, welcome back to Live Talk. And again, today we're going to have a conversation, or we're going to share some information today that you may not have heard before about two individuals. And actually, these two individuals was right here in Florida. A lot of things don't happen in Florida, but we're going to share some information with you today that you may not have heard. So before we get there, I want to share with you a short clip, and then we're going to get right into the meat of the conversation today.
he was a kind of hero, unsung hero.
All of the civil rights movement of Florida stands largely on the shoulders of Harriette Moore.
He was so far ahead of his time. His political organizing was way beyond anything that was happening in the South. It could have changed the state of Florida, it could have changed the civil rights movement, and that's why he was killed.
In the early 20th century, Florida beckoned people to a tropical paradise. But for most settlers, Florida was anything but paradise. It was a hardscrabble life. Annual income was half the national average. Most children attended school only 2 months a year. And if you were black, conditions were much worse. Black laborers and sharecroppers did back-breaking work for below living wages. It was, after all, a white man's world. Florida coon cards, or postcards from early in the century, reminded blacks of their place in society. Florida politicians reminded them as well. In 1916, Florida elected Sidney Katz governor. A former Baptist preacher, Katz had found a new and bigger pulpit. He warned about demon alcohol, Jews, papists, and Negroes. He campaigned against any public schooling for blacks, saying, "The Negro is an inferior race. I do not believe in higher education for Negroes when there are thousands of white children who get only 2 or 3 months of schooling."
The teens, when people like Sidney J. Katz, the racist, anti-Semitic governor, come along, he begins railing against blacks as part of his platform. And one of the outgrowths is that blacks begin migrating out of the state.
In the first half of this century, close to 2 million blacks in the Deep South made their way north.
Tens of thousands of black families left the state of Florida during the Great Migration to escape the violence of the Klan, the poverty, and really the stranglehold of the sharecropping system. And for some reason, Harry Moore's family stayed.
Harry Tyson Moore was born in 1905 in Houston, Florida, not far from the banks of the Suwannee.
All right, so that was just a short clip to kind of give you some background. Just the state of Florida, back then, coming into the 20th century, the early 20th century, what Black folks was dealing with around that time. And then here go a man and his family that, they talk, what they call it, the Great Migration.
Great Migration.
Stayed here in Florida.
People trying to get away from it.
Right, and others was going up north trying to get away from it. But just to get into a little bit about Harry, I know it cut off right at the point where we getting into the meat of just knowing who Harry is,
right.
And just who is Harry. So let's explain to the listening audience like who Harry is. There's a little background on Harry. I know he was born November the 18th, 1905, but you want to kind of go into some of that and then I kind of...
Yeah, just a little bit background. And he wasn't, Harry Moore was actually born in the Panhandle back then, but for circumstances, he wound up having to move to actually to Jacksonville, Florida, where he was raised by his aunts. In fact, 3 of his aunts. And 2 of his aunts were teachers. And because of that, that's kind of where he got his love of education and learning. And he was raised there from that point. And if I fast forward a little bit, he graduated from high school. And then if you want to backtrack, you can, but I'm just going over some of his background. Like when he graduated from high school, he actually graduated and began teaching school. He started teaching fourth grade after he graduated from high school. And at that time, as when he met his wife, teaching as well, the two of them got together, got married, and then decided to continue their education. And then went on to further, they got a higher education at Bethune-Cookman College, which was actually, historic because Mary McLeod Bethune had founded that college. But then after they graduated and got higher education is when they began to move into, I guess, a different era of their life. And I'm gonna kind of pause. I don't know if you want to add a bit.
Well, the first thing that kind of stood out to me, where he was raised at in the Swan, it said Houston. I never knew there was a town, a city called Houston here in Florida. I didn't know that. Just to let y'all know, I did not know that. I'm sharing it just for some people that did
Houston,
know that as well. So I was kind of struck by that. I said, like, Houston. I said, Houston. I thought he was born in Florida. Yep. So I'm thinking Houston, Texas, but it was Houston, Florida. And that was, like you say, up in the Swan in the Panhandles. And that's for many that's not from Florida, that's way up north. And when you think about the Panhandle, there's a lot of what you say, like rural type,
Alabama, Mississippi. That's what you kind of want to think of when you get into the Panhandle.
Right. And I think even today, it may be developed a little bit more than, of course, than it was then. But you can kind of go up there and still see probably some swampy areas and stuff like that. And, and you still see a lot of the racism that's up in that area as well. And one thing I found out, and I somewhat knew, like him being when he was sent to his aunts in Jacksonville, it was because Jacksonville was a predominantly black city, and then them being teachers, which is, I was thinking about that being kind of rare.
Yes,
right.
Higher education, that higher education, that was elite.
Yeah, so. I said, because you always look at a person that does great things like he ended up doing, is like, what was his upbringing? Like, where did he come from? Like, was this something that was already foreseen to happen based off of his upbringing and some of his studies, or, however he carried himself? You think about those type of things. And here you go, the only child of, his mother and father, the only child. And his father, I think, was ill at, I think when he was 9 years of age, and he passed away, and he was shipped up to his aunts and stuff. And then he got really intrigued with education and learning, I do have a caller with a line unmuted. Were you trying to make a comment? The spiritual significance of I'm just moving right now.
And I'm gonna go back because you brought that point up. And I said Alabama, Mississippi. Let me be very clear what that means. The Panhandle, it was rural. That means at that time where he was growing up, hanging, lynching, raping Black people was normal. That it was not a lot of opportunity. When they say sharecropping, you could work out there in the field. See, we literally were picking cotton, and that was an occupation, picking cotton, and you didn't make a lot of money picking cotton or in the fields. So that move to Jacksonville was actually trying to get an opportunity to get him away from there, specifically after his father passed.
Right. Because I think she got so overwhelmed with all the duties that she had to take on, in order to make ends meet. She had to take on the responsibility of running the store. And like you said, she had to get out there and pick cottons because she couldn't do what he actually did. I think he managed the water tanks, and you know, a lot of that deals with, you know, having muscle and like somebody trying to get in, but yeah, and then fast forwarding to like what you mentioned, you know, him going to school, entering to high school, grade school, and then eventually going to the next level. And I think Bethune-Cookman, if I'm not mistaken, at that particular time, it wasn't a college per se. It was a girls' school that eventually became co-ed.
Became what we know now. It's like, see, but that was one of the first. See, Mary McLeod Bethune was another Black pioneer because she founded that school, and it was very unique to have a Black college at that time. So yeah, he came through a lot to even make it to that point.
Right. But it took perseverance for him to even do what he chose to do, because you had then, although you had, I think you had the Black teachers, and then you still had the white teachers, and then, you know, there's always the discrepancy in pay, and it was always a choice of you had white students and you had Black students, so there was still a separation of how things was integrated at that time, and we'll eventually get into the point of, you know, having some type of freedom from what was instituted as a way to, I guess, bring down or separate the Black race from the white race at that particular time.
Well, and see, because herein steps Harry Moore. You bring it right to why we talking about Harry Moore. See, because at that time, and I think it was Brevard County when he got the job working for the school board, but there was a lot of segregation. There was a lot of racism going on. And this was in like the 40s and the 50s. This is before the 60s and the civil rights movement that we think of. Harry Moore was outspoken because Black teachers were not getting the same benefits. They were not getting the same pay. And he was very outspoken about that.
Right.
And because he was speaking about it, they had an issue with him, but he would not back down. In fact, him and his wife were fired because he was outspoken on racial issues. Like, he was a teacher. For example, there was not to get too far, but there was a situation with, it's called the Groveland Four.
Yes.
It was 4 Black boys. Here we go again with the accusation of raping a white woman. No evidence, but this was the accusation.
Right.
So now it's an uproar. And then when they come in, you got a white mob. One of these Black boys running was killed by the mob at the time. He killed. They arrested the other 3. They were falsely accused, wrongfully convicted, and Harry Moore was very outspoken on it because it was, and this happened over in Lake County, but it was hogwash. And he brought it up. And the NAACP was starting to get vocal because he was doing a lot of, while he was teaching, he was doing volunteer work for the NAACP down here. In fact, he registered like in the numbers of tens of thousands of people to vote. So these folks had a problem with this man because he getting people registered to vote. Now that they vote, he getting people in position. And now he's speaking out against this injustice. And because what he did and they opened it up, they realized this is unjust. So they were going back to court to reopen this case because they realized it was bogus. The sheriff at the time, and I want to find the name of that.
Find the name of him, because I know like him working with being a part of the NAACP at that particular time, he had resources to be able to act on a lot of the cases that was brought against a lot of our people at that time. I think he called in Thurgood Marshall.
He brought in some big guns.
Yeah. And even at that particular time, when Thurgood came in, these two men that were three. It was three of them. Was it three or two?
I think it was three.
Yeah. So, and did you find his name?
Yeah, the sheriff. It was Willis McCall. That was the sheriff, Willis McCall. And see, because and the thing is, we have to remember, this is a time when Black folks supposed to stay in their place. Mm-hmm. And these people standing up to them, and they had an issue with him because he stood up. And like I said, he brought in Thurgood Marshall, so they had to get ready to retry this. Mm-hmm. This thing, Willis McCall, he's supposed to be the sheriff, bringing them to court. Don't make me curse. This SOB, he shot and killed one of them on the way. Shot two of them.
Tried to kill both of them.
One of them survived. He killed another one. And it's like, okay, you tried to kill both of them, so they couldn't come and say and realize and prove that it was wrong altogether. You kill one, you injure another. And now this enraged Harry Moore. And he was wanting this guy to be fired. He should be dismissed. But it's like, this was the good old boy system back then. I'm sure he was a part of the Klan, but you weren't your badge.
Right.
And then I don't know if we're ready to move forward to what happened, or we go stop for a minute.
We're gonna watch it. We're gonna watch it. Okay. A quick clip, and it's gonna talk a little bit about that, and we're gonna get into the remaining of that part.
Hello, Central Florida. Today I want to tell you the story about Harry T. and Harriette V. Moore, a local Brevard County couple who paid the ultimate price to help start the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement gained notoriety in the 1960s with Dr. Martin Luther King. But that movement actually began almost 2 decades earlier with an activist who lived in the small Brevard County community of Mims.
Harry T. and Harriette V. Moore were the first civil rights activists in the state of Florida. They were before Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, before we knew the civil rights movement today.
Harry T. Moore truly was a man before his time. And to put himself and his family in danger for the betterment of others truly speaks to the volume of the kind of character.
Harry T. Moore traveled all over the state registering African Americans to vote. He had a huge impact and paved the way for civil rights activities that are better known in the 1960s and beyond.
He understood that if we could get involved in the voting process, that lives would be changed.
Harry T. Moore was teaching Blacks not to be afraid of the Jim Crow era. He knew he was going to ultimately pay a price, but he said freedom is never free. So on December 25th, 1951, it was Christmas. They celebrated like you and I, but the Klansman was hiding in the grove, and they had to lay out to his house. They crawled under his house, 10:20 p.m., lit the dynamite, and they said that was the loudest bomb heard around the world.
Freedom never dies, I say. Freedom never dies. No.
Harry died that night, Harriette just 9 days later. Today, on that same land in Mims, stands an exact replica of their home, as well as a museum, all as a tribute to their sacrifice.
It happened in Florida, in the land of flowers. It was on a Christmas night.
This museum gives us an opportunity to become aware of the legacy and just how he has impacted lives today.
We're standing on somebody's shoulders. There was people before us that fought with their life to pave the way for us. Look at America today. The changes would never have been made had Harry T. Moore not inspired and encouraged Blacks back in those days to vote.
No bomb can kill the dreams of old, for freedom never dies.
I'm Buddy Pittman, and that's Central Florida.
Right. Now, when you see something like this, and just for the listening audience, when we talk about a lot of these places in Florida, like Mims and a lot of these type of places, even Mims today is still somewhat kind of racist. If you look at it, it was just these towns and places are some of the areas that a lot of us don't really I ain't gonna say don't belong, but it's not favorable for us to be there. But this has been a part of Florida's history. And now you think about Harry and Harriette Moore, and they had an actual home in Mims, you know, and also before I get to the part where we talk a little bit about the museum, and now I do want to show a clip where we actually went to the museum, when we took the youth to the museum. I want to just go right into what we left off at, as far as getting to that next.
Yeah, and it is, because so it got to the point. Now, both of these were well-educated Black men and women. They were teachers. They were fired from their jobs now because they're troublemakers.
Right.
So they fired them. But fortunately, at that time, he went ahead and became a full-time worker for the NAACP. I think he was like the secretary, and he was signing lots of people up to vote. And they really had a problem. Like people, this was in the 40s. This was the beginning of the civil rights movement. This was registering Black people in Florida.
As we know it.
Yes.
As we know it.
So it's like, here you got a place, we talking about Florida is as bad as Alabama and Mississippi. And he's registering, I think, tens of thousands of Black people to vote. And they had an issue with that. And then when he stood up against the injustice at what happened with these 4 Black youths, called the Groveland 4, it was retaliation that the Klan wanted him. And they say one of these guys, when they caught him, he had the actual plans, that floor layout of this man's home. Right. So he'd know what his bedroom was, his living room. And it's like, this happened on December 25th. This was Christmas.
When you think about that, and then you think about the history of America, like we saying Christmas, and so Christmas to me, based off of the theory behind what it's supposed to mean, has been a part of American history and culture as something pleasant and good.
Yes.
But here you go on Christmas Day, on their Christmas Day, you go and put a bomb up under someone's house, and you kill 2 human beings because and
could have killed their children because the young children were there. But fortunately, one of them was at another location. But it's like, yeah, you and it's, let's call it what these were. They were openly Klansmen. It was obvious that's who they were. After doing investigations, that's who they were. But you planted a bomb, and you claim under your nights that you're supposed to be Christian. And this is supposed to be the highest day of the year to you. And what do? You go seek to murder someone in their home while they're sleeping. And the worst part about that is this was the 25th anniversary. This was their wedding anniversary that day. They were celebrating their wedding anniversary that day, and you murdered them in their bed, in their sleep.
Right. And when you think about it, we recognizing them for the works that they did, because, like you said, he was big on investigating lynchings. He was, huge on voters registration. He was huge on equal pay for teachers. Like, he was big on a lot of the things that was, I say, ailing the Black community at that time. And even up to the point of just getting into the civil rights as we know it today, he was also included in that as well. And then Harriet, we can't forget about how involved she was as well. And she was a little older than he was, when they met. She was a teacher at the same time. But I think she was an insurance agent
and a broker. She was an insurance broker as well.
Yeah. And so she was a natural entrepreneur. And so you had 2 motivated people that were seeking to do what was So we had 2 motivated individuals understanding what was ill in our community, and chose to step up regardless of knowing what can happen to them, because they know the Klan. They know how devious the men, these people were
in a little city like Mims.
Yeah.
And those are when you say that, what that means, those are those cities where they were open. That's why that sheriff figured he could do that openly, and is supposed to be just pushed under the rug.
Right. And you can tell he was also influenced because initially when they got arrested, he was supposed to be the one protecting them, I guess, from the public eye.
Right.
And then as you taking them to another venue, you murder them.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you murder one of them. One of them, you wanted to kill him, but you couldn't. He ain't died. So now you're dealing with a situation where you can tell he was probably a Klansman as well, because like you say, most of them, although they dressed in white, some of them was in police suits.
Exactly. They were in that star. You wore yours during the day, but you had a shield on. Mm-hmm. And of course, now here you have two been killed, one injured, all white jury, found them guilty of a crime that they didn't commit.
There was no evidence.
For no evidence, only because, black men accused of raping a white woman.
Right.
But there's no evidence to support any of that. So it's like, now, unfortunately, these guys are all dead now. The other two passed, but now they've been exonerated. I think 2 years, 21 or 20, they got exonerated from that because they realized there was no case.
Right.
But of course, they didn't live to see it.
There you go. And then just for our listening audience, we're talking about Henry and Harriette Moore. There was two of the first modern day civil rights leaders before Martin Luther King, before Malcolm X. A lot of people don't know about them because they was right here in Florida. And it was in certain parts of Florida that we don't know a whole lot about. But Harriet, one of the things that Harriet did, not Harriet, but Harry, and because now that's a uniqueness.
Yes, they both got the same name.
Listen, how you meet somebody? Your name Harry, her name Harriet. How does that even happen?
And then, I guess it was fate.
I'm serious, because that throws you off right there. But here you got a person, a man that's motivated, and he's on a mission to do what he feel like is important at this particular time in his life. He's a part of the NAACP as a volunteer. He's so motivated and active in his work that, like you mentioned, he was fired. The NAACP sees how motivated he was. They hired him on, make him the executive secretary of the whole state. Although he had a local branch, he was the executive secretary of the whole state. And in his tenure, he brought in tens of thousands of members in 63 different locations within the state. I think it was different branches within the state.
He was doing in a state like Florida, and not to take anything from them, more than we were doing in big cities like New York, Philadelphia, and Chicago. Mm-hmm. He was doing that in the Deep South, in a place where after this bomb, and what the people in the town said, that when it blew up, it was so loud that it woke people up. They were coming out in their night clothes to find out what happened. And when they found out what happened, because a lot of people, either they worked with him, they knew he had registered them to vote, or he was helping them get their jobs, helping them with their church. So they knew who it was. But this is the system that he was fearless, because Mims, it's a few miles outside of Orlando.
Right.
But the nearest hospital that they could take a black person to then was 30 miles away, up in Sanford. So he had to pass all of these hospitals that was right near it on one side, right near it on the other side, pass them on the other side, to go all the way to the only black hospital they will see a black person was in Sanford, and he died on the way there. Right. So had he got early treatment, who knows, he could have been saved. But they was not accepting black people. Just the reality. See, they knew he couldn't go to those hospitals, so he had to drive past them.
Right.
And he died before he could get to the hospital.
Right. That's something, though, when you think about that. And we had the pleasure or the privilege of going to the museum. Before I get into that, I do want to open up to our listening audience. Like I said, we're talking about Henry and Harriette Moore. If you knew anything about them, if you did any research on them, we'd like to hear from you, to share that, you know, some information that you have come across, or even just chime in that, you know, just to say something in regards to what you may not have known. You know, we always want to hear from our listening audience that's out there, you know, so by all means, all you have to do is just unmute yourself and we'll recognize you to come right on. You can say what you want to say in regards to what we're talking about today, the conversation. But we did I had the opportunity to go to the museum. Now, at this time, brother, when we went to the museum, and I think that was it was right before the pandemic.
Yes.
And I did not know about Harry Moore or Harriette Moore. I don't know how much you knew about him.
I think when it was brought up to us, neither one of us knew about it. That's why we were so excited about this is a good opportunity for us to go take the youth and not only teach them, but we can learn something as well.
Right. Because one of the things we do, even as, I mean, of course, Live Talk, we try to, you know, highlight things that are going on in our community and throughout our history. But we also work with MOP, which is a men's group right here in Orlando, Florida. So we often try to take the youth to the museums, to, you know, any museums that we know about that can share information and knowledge that's not being taught in the public school system. I think it's very important that we, you know, share that information with our youth so they'll know what transpired. Because I know we was talking about this when you think about the 20th century, if you're 23 years old right now today, you was born in the 20th century when a lot of this was happening during the 20th century.
Yep.
So we're not too far from that. I just want to bring it to people to know that we're not too far from a lot of the things that has happened to us, and we still deal with it today. Like you mentioned in your opening the word when you were speaking about John Lewis talking about George Floyd. So this stuff is happening, but now we have technology, we have, you know, these smartphones and stuff like that we can record more stuff today. Then we didn't have a lot of that type of stuff. But I do want to share with our listening audience some of the stuff that we came across at the museum. Just highlight some stuff before we get into talking a little bit more about the museum.
Shalom, brothers. Brother Yafo Seth, how y'all doing?
Hey, brother.
Great. How you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm doing Tolbach. Just chiming in because, you know, certainly we just came out of the month they call Black History Month, right? And they speak about, you know, all kind of leaders. And I mean, we had some powerful people that, you know, came through the ranks, right? But, and what's so perplexing to me, because the one significant person in my life that changed my life is Yahweh Ben Yahweh.
Right.
And we don't have too many people that talk about him. You know, they don't put him on specials. I mean, none of this stuff. And I guess it's because it's our job to talk about Yahweh Ben Yahweh. But I just kind of want to chime in because I just, you know, feel like if anybody's listening, you know, that's the one person that showed us who we were as a people, gave us our identity, gave us an opportunity to connect directly with our God, Yahweh. So again, I wanted to kind of chime in on that. It's just not surprising during the time of the 1920s, 85% of all Caucasians were actually card-carrying KKK members. They were proud of what they did. And certainly that same spirit, even though they may not be outwardly about it, but inwardly, they all, majority of them got the same spirit today. So I'm not surprised when you see situation that happened to George Floyd. It happened then, and it's, it is happening right now. So again, I just kind of want to chime in for a minute. Just listening, brothers, and certainly Shabbat Shalom.
Hey, so Thank you for chiming in, brother. What you said is so very important, and that's why we wanted to start trying to highlight a lot of the unsung. We call it the unsung Black leaders. You know, a lot of people look at, even with Yahweh, a lot of people look at him the way they perceive him to be. But like you mentioned, that's a lot of the things that we have to do, and that's definitely something that we're charged to do. And and that would definitely be something that we bring forth, getting to that point. So thank you for chiming in, and we you know, hey, we're on the same wavelength.
and yeah, thank you for that comment, brother, because that is definitely a show, but that was going to take a little work, because when we put that one together, it's going to be a special production, but it is definitely in the works. Well, but at the same time, like you say, when it's Black History Month, and we're not just doing it in the month of February, we're going to continue doing it because our history should be continued. It's just there's so much of our history that gets erased, and it's our job to write ourselves back in and make it known.
Right. Indeed. All right. We have any more listeners that want to chime in about anything that you heard today, or just share something? All right, so we're gonna watch this is kind of the museum that we have here, and if you're in the Orlando area, you know, it's in Mills, but it's not that far from where we are. And we had the opportunity to go here. Just give you a little clip on it. Right, so as you can see, we had the opportunity to take some of the youth to the museum, and like what my brother just chimed in, and just talking about mentioning Yahweh ben Yahweh. I think that the biggest thing that even us we need to do is create a museum, bring one forth. I think that's huge, and that's going to be a huge undertaking. Talking about that,
yes, something that we need to put on the agenda,
right?
Because it is our responsibility to do so.
Right, indeed. No, but just being able to visit the museum of Harriet of Henry and Harriette Moore, you know, we seen a replica of the whole property that was blown into pieces. And I don't know if it was shown on some of the clips, how the house was all, you know.
One of them did. They showed it after the bombing. It was literally like a house leaning over, falling over.
But now that today, you know, the city of Brevard County, they came together and they created this nice you know, landscape, and the same house. And as you can see on that clip that I just showed, we was in the actual house. It's a replica of the house, but that's how it was laid out at that particular time. And we was able to you know, see how, you know, the whole outlook of that property was. But it was very intriguing and very I say informed visit. You know, a lot of information that I didn't know, I learned about. And a lot of the brothers learned about some information. A lot of the children learned about information at that particular time.
Yeah, and it was great because it's the same land where his house was. And what they did is that they totally restored the house, or a replica of it, so you can see it the way it was when they lived in it. And they had their history. It had a lot of their background information, but you could actually walk through the house and see like the bed, you could see the kitchen, the wood burning stove. And basically they had a high standard of living for Black people at that time. Because like you say, not only was he an educator or worked for the NAACP, his wife was an educator in insurance. So they were actually upwardly mobile Black people. And it's unfortunate that just that, in itself caused people to have an issue with them, because you're not supposed to have.
Right.
And then you want to take what they have, even though they've earned it.
And that's it, and you find that a lot of times where, somebody wants something that you may have. Somebody, do I have a listener?
Yeah, and just a side note that with their great grandson, what is his name? It's Darren Pagan. Now, it was probably a little political, but at least President Biden at his State of the Union address had him sit in, I guess, like the virtual, with the pandemic, but they invited him as a guest. But he was a virtual guest of the president, the grandson of Henry and Harriette Moore.
Oh, okay.
Doing this current State of the Union address.
That's something I didn't know.
So at least they recognize them through their grandson, grandson.
Yeah, because when you think about it, and I'm just going to run down a couple of things based off of the notes that I have.
Great grandson, I'm sorry.
Great grandson, right. So in 1999, the state of Florida approved designation of the Moore's home site as a Florida heritage landmark, and the Brevard County started restoring the site. That's what we was talking about earlier. By 2004, the Brevard County had created the Henry and Harriette Moore Memorial Park and Memorial Park and Center at the home site in Mims. We talked about Mims and we talked about the replica of the home there. Brevard County named its Justice Center after the Moores and included material there about their lives and work. And also, Henry Moore Avenue in Mims, Florida, is named after him. They got an avenue that was named after him. In March 2013, the Henry and Harriette V. Moore Post Office in Cocoa, Florida, was named in their honor. Didn't know that.
Okay, yeah.
And then in 2012, the Florida legislature designated State Road 46 in Brevard County as the Henry and Harriette V. Moore Memorial Highway. And last but not least, in 2013, Henry and Harriette V. Moore was inducted into the Florida Civil Rights Hall of Fame.
And they also, it's like at their funeral, Langston Hughes composed a poem for them called The Ballad of Harry Moore. In the wake of the couple's death in 1952, and the NAACP awarded him the Spring Arm Medal for outstanding achievement by an African American. So they got a lot of accolades. It's just not as publicly known.
Right. All right. So we're going to, if we don't have anyone else that want to chime in and share, or just, at this point in time, you have to raise your hand because everyone is muted. We had some noise that came in, so we had to kind of mute out everyone. But if you want to chime in, you can raise your hand. We will recognize you at this time. If you wanted to say something in regards to what we're talking, the conversation that we're talking about today, or if you just want to highlight someone that you feel need recognition, like one of my brothers did not too long ago. So by any means, the lines are open. If we don't have anyone, we're going to go to a commercial break, and we're gonna come back with live. We're gonna come back live with the news, the breaking news of the day. So we'll be right back.
Hi guys, it's Miss Finance Pro. Do you know it's extremely important for employers to understand and know the difference between an actual employee and an independent contractor? Here's a tip for you to understand how to determine the difference. Tip number 1, behavioral control. Who controls the work environment? Is it already structured where the employee has to come in? Also, finances. How is the employee being paid? Is it a fixed fee? Are they given an hourly wage? Or is their pay going to be determined based on the actual work performed? And lastly, for the employee/contractor to perform the service, are they being provided materials directly from the employer, or are they providing their own materials? When it comes to out-of-pocket expenses, are they being reimbursed for their time? Knowing the answers to these critical questions will better help you determine if you actually have an employee or an independent contractor. It's extremely important to know the difference, because if you are actually paying contractors that should be employees, that means that the taxes that are needed for their wages is not being paid by the employer as they should be. And that is a huge no-no when it comes to the IRS. For more information, visit our website, www.countonscott.com. At Scott & Associates accounting firm, you can get your taxes done in or outside of the office by an experienced tax professional. To schedule your appointment, give us a call today at 321-754-1360. The number again is 321-754-1360. Or schedule your appointment online at www.countonscott.com.
All right, so we are back, but I'm seeing a lot of chat that's going on in our chat room here.
Look like some.
A lot of times what we try to do is just kind of open up the lines and have a respectful conversation. And then that way, you know, we don't have to put so much security on, but now we definitely have to put security on to make sure that we're blocking some individuals out that don't have anything else better to do. So at this time, we're going to go to our breaking news. All right, so breaking news. Did you know that it's Women History Month, brother?
It comes up right after, but yes, it is. I'm aware. It comes up after what they call Black History Month.
Well, we're going to get into Women's History Month. And then I do have somebody I want to recognize when it comes to women's history. And I want to, in fact, it's two people I want to recognize. One being my mother that's not here with us in the physical flesh. And then I also want to recognize my wife. And, you know, just in case we don't get back to this point where we can be on or to speak about Women's History Month in this particular month, I want to highlight it right now. So I want to recognize my mother first and foremost. Like I said, she's not physically with us today, but she was a woman that was humble in her spirit. And I would also say that she was one that Yahweh chose to be a steward over me. And also on top of that, she gave me the unconditional love that Yahweh instills in each and every one of us when it comes to you being a steward over your child. And I always say steward because we're all his children. We're all the children of the Most High. So when it comes to each and every one of us, we are his child. And we are stewards over those children that he puts in our life. And I want to recognize my mother during this month as being a great steward in my life, And then I also want to recognize my wife as well. And the reason I want to recognize her, not just because she's a mother and a wife, because she's a great businesswoman. And just a little known Black history fact, she became the first African-American to own a franchise H&R Block in the Central Florida area. Right. And she was top 100 out of 3,000 companies as far as at the top. So it was a lot of things to recognize when it comes to her. This was just some small things that was just a little small Black history fact. So those are the two women I want to recognize right now. And I know it's many more that I can recognize. I'm pretty sure there's a lot throughout history that we can recognize, but I did want to chime in and just kind of recognize those two women there.
No,
would you like to recognize my brother?
That's wonderful. Well, I could go. You caught me at a point. I don't know. We got all month, so I'm gonna have to pick because I don't know if it'll be fair for me right now to pick one. But I will say, because it is, I'm gonna say Women's History Month, this is a time to recognize the women and the mothers in our life, be it past or present, for the greatness that they did. I mean, we have to come to that point to where we recognize greatness and not let it get clouded behind things like sex or age, race, specifically in this case, sex.
Right.
Because a lot of, women didn't have, we forget that it was in 19, I believe it was 72, that a woman couldn't have a bank account in America. In the 20th century.
Wow.
Could not without, unless they had a man.
You're right.
So it's like, so we have to realize we've made some great strides, but we have to continue to make these strides. Otherwise, there are those who seek to turn the clock back and see if we'll allow them to turn the clock back on our women. Then next they'll start turning the clock back on the Black men. And before we know it, we'll be where we were in the 19th or the 18th century.
Right.
And that what we say, never again.
That's it. When you think about it, we talked about Harriette Moore today, a great, example of a woman throughout our history that have made did some great things and make, some great contributions to our community as well. So it's a lot of people that we can talk about. And hopefully we get to the point, maybe we'll share some of that on our YouTube, our Facebook page, our Instagram page, about many other women that have made great contributions to close to us in our lives, and I think that's very important. All right, so this is the part where we kind of get into our book reading right after we talk about current events. There's a lot that's going on around the world, even with what's transpiring here as far as our technical side of things.
Yeah, there's a world war.
Whoever this is, they must be new. We didn't have our technician in today.
See, they say Satan is always busy. See, the opposer is always busy. However, see, when it should bring a joy to understand when someone is base, let them stay where they are base. See, as what was it? Speaking of a Black woman, what did Michelle Obama say? When they go low, you go high. Don't allow someone to take you down to an area where they are,
right?
Because they want to get you down in what I like to call a cesspool. My dad used to have a saying. He said, if you stir in crap, it'll stink. So don't stir in it. But see, you have those that they have nothing for, and it's funny to me. You have nothing better to do. So it just shows me how base and how low you are.
Right.
Because we're high and we're uplifted.
Right.
And because we grounded, nothing can bring us off of that because we're on a platform doing things for a greater and a higher purpose. And see, so is the story with Harry Moore. See, you have those, if you want to do a bomb, you can't do that. So the only bomb you can do is you can come in with a word war. But what I can tell you is your words will simply condemn you to hell because those are your wicked words.
That's it. That's it. Listen, you can't kill my vibe. That's the energy that you keep.
Like,
see, that's what we talk about. Live talk, living in vital energy.
Vital energy. That's it. Like the most, you can't kill God.
That's it.
So like you can try, you can harm a body, but you can't kill God.
That's it.
Because He's eternal.
That's it.
And we're living witnesses to that testimony.
Mm-hmm. What we find out over time that security is paramount. And a lot of times we become trusted and, we want to be open, but it's like, you know what? It's a lot of fools out there. And if you let a fool in, he's going to act the fool. He don't know no other way to act.
Right. Can't help himself.
But to act like a fool. But no. As far as, the show today, we do want to, thank everybody for tuning into the show today. I'm pretty sure a lot of you out there on Facebook that's tuned into the show, and just in case you didn't know, we did have some idiot on that was not acting in the court or in the best behavior,
in accordance with our standards.
Right, with our standards, and that happens sometimes. But it just make you tighten up your security. That's all you have to do, tighten up your security. All right, so we're gonna go to our announcements. We're gonna come right back right after our announcements. To stay connected to us, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Live Talk Orlando. You want to come on to the show? Join us on the show. You'd like for us to interview you? Then email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook at Define Your Purpose 2021, on Instagram at Jeremiah Israel, and you can visit the website www.jeremiahisrael.com. Make sure you pick up a copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name. All right, so welcome back, family. As you heard, there's many ways that you can follow us. Definitely, we would love for you to go to our YouTube channel. Please go there and then go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are going to be a lot of premieres that's going to be coming in the near future. So we want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you get notification. Just click on the bell so you get notification. That's Live Talk Orlando on YouTube. And then on Facebook, like was just mentioned, we want you to go there, follow us on Facebook and then Instagram as well. Minister?
Yeah, just a salute to Harry and Harriette Moore. Wanted to give them a send out for the great work that they did. And, for us here personally, like you say, go to that YouTube channel because we're going to be preparing some stuff for some high holy days. So we're going to have some premieres for you. So when we do get back, we'll be able to continue live talk with some exciting new shows and new information.
Right. All right. Again, thank you all for tuning in to the show. Those of you that logged into the Zoom conference and those of you that are watching on Facebook, we thank you for the support. And continue to support. Like my brother just said, there's gonna be some new stuff that come out. We will have a premiere that's coming out next week. So That information will be on our Facebook page. So if you follow our Facebook, you'll see what we have as far as events. And then YeremiahIsrael.com. If you haven't as of yet, please go and pick up a copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name. Support. And then I think that's it, brother, right?
Yes, I think that's it. We were right about at that time.
All right. Thank you again for tuning in from the host, Peace and Prosperity, and then from Live Talk, we out.
Peace.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
For live.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready? For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for Live Talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off. Are you ready?
Let's go.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for Live Talk?
Yeah.
Because it's about time to set it off.
Live Talk. This Live Talk. Live Talk. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. Living in vital energy. The universal language spirituality. We're going all the way live with it. With Live Talk, increase your mentality, put away carnality, and increase your spirituality. Let's go. Live Talk.
Are you ready?
This Live Talk.
Are you ready?
Live Talk.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Live Talk.
For the word of the day, the knowledge and the wisdom will increase your faith. Are you ready for Live Talk? Because it's about time to set it off.